A geode is a round rock formation that has a colorful surprise on the inside. Geodes have sparkling crystals on the inside, as well as bands of colors. Geodes can form in many different ways, depending on the environment that they're in. A science teacher could probably tell you a lot more about how they are formed, but in general, the crystals and layers of color inside a geode are formed under intense pressure and heat. Different minerals from the earth mix with water and eventually become a solid rock. Over time, like hundreds to thousands to even millions of years, those minerals and layers build up, and eventually they fuse together inside the rock. Then intense heat from the sun and the earth will eventually cause those minerals to change color and crystallize. Who knew that Mother Earth was such an amazing artist? Today, we'll recreate those beautiful, colorful characteristics of a geode using basic art supplies. The process should take about 3 class periods to complete. Today, we'll work on part 1. I'm going to start out with a Sharpie marker. If you don't have a Sharpie, you can use a black colored pencil, or you can even use a black crayon. Whatever you use, make sure that it is not going to be washable, because eventually we're going to paint over this with a wet brush. So whatever you choose to use, make sure that it's not going to wash away when we add the water. Write your name on the back first and then flip your paper over. To start out, I'm going to use a very irregular kind of jagged line to create the outer shell of my geode. And I'm really kind of just letting my hand do its natural thing here. I'm not worried about making it perfect because remember, these are naturally formed in nature from the earth. So those irregular lines are going to help the geode look a little more natural. Next, I'm going to go into the inside of the geode and repeat with another layer of irregular lines, so on the inside. And I am leaving a space between my outer shell of the geode and my second line. All right, moving inside one more time, I'm going to add a third layer of irregular black lines on the inside, again, to make it look like my geode has layers. Next up, adding some color. So here I have 2 different kinds of markers. I have Mr. Sketch and I have Crayola. No matter what markers you choose, make sure that they are washable markers, because that is how we're going to finish these off with a wet brush, turning the marker ink into what is almost acts like a paint. I'm going to use my Mr. Sketch markers because I have more color variety here, but you can use whatever markers you have available. As far as color choices, I highly recommend sticking with color families that you know, so warm colors or cool colors. The reason is because eventually these colors are going to blend and mix, and when we use colors that are in the same color family, you get a really nice variety of different colors when they blend together. So try to stick with either warm colors or cool colors. I'm going to start out with warm colors, and I'm beginning with red, and all I'm really doing here is just adding a band of color right against the edge of that outer shell of my geode. I'm going to continue doing that the entire way around. I'm going to speed things up a little bit. So there's my first layer of color. And I'm just going to continue doing that the whole way around. Make sure you leave empty spaces between your colors so that you have empty space so that your colors can blend together really nicely in that empty space. So what we're going to do is eventually use a wet brush on top of that marker and push those colors into each other so that they blend in that empty space and make a nice layered effect, similar to what we'd see on a geode. After you have finished adding your color, you can put this away and we will move on to part 2 next class.